Hello, everyone. This is the Static Site Editor weekly design, product, and UX research sync. So this is October the 13th, Tuesday, because yesterday was a US holiday. And we'll dive right in. Curious, we can start with maybe design. Curious, Michael, if you had thoughts on that Think Big session that we held last week. Was it helpful for you? I know we had thought about like coming out of it with like a little bit of a design exercise, maybe a day or two to spend thinking through further the job to be done that we highlight, or the potential solution that came from the discussion. And I'm not sure we got all the way there during that hour, but just wanted to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It was a good discussion around that particular job to be done of linking to partials or other content that may exist elsewhere in the code base. So kind of like lookups and things like that. I think there is enough there to kind of have like a high level kind of like big blocks, like today we will link you to the file. Tomorrow you can just do everything right in the editor. So that's why I was actually looking to see if there was an issue for this yesterday, but I didn't see it. So after today, I'll create like an issue just to capture that conversation and like pull out points that we discussed, and then decisions, and then probably from there, based on the high level things, it's just like, here's a rough diagram of like what that might look like moving forward. I think there's like big stepping stones that we talked about. Yeah, nothing super concrete, but I think it does give you a good sense of like the potential problem spaces that we'll have, and like what we might do as rough iterations towards solving that problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a helpful and it was a really good conversation. I liked all the different threads of thought. I was just looking through our category maturity epics, and I could have sworn that I made at least a placeholder issue for using reusable content, but maybe I didn't get around to it. So yeah, please feel free to just create one as a placeholder and start putting some thoughts in there. We can also just use it as like an issue that just captures the outcome of the Think Big, and then if we need to create a new issue for the actual implementation, that would be totally fine too. I'm not finding it, so I probably mislabeled it or thought I did it and didn't actually create it. That's okay. Let's see here. Lost my agenda. There we go. Yeah, so we'll have one of those next month, and I think we'll get more focused and more disciplined with it as we go on. I think the format was fine, and everybody's points were really insightful. So I'm happy with it. I'm glad we finally got to do it. So thanks for pushing me towards it. I'm gonna highlight my two product points on the agenda now, because one of the UX research ones is going to relate to it. So just a FYI, Enrique has a proof of concept, if you didn't see it in Slack or in the issue, for using CK Editor 5 as a WYSIWYG editor. I think it's down to this one and TipTap as potential frameworks to go with. I've scheduled a call with the CK Editor team, who are based, I believe they said, in Poland, and they are going to talk us through some of their licensing. And they have in my opinion because I'm not an expert on licensing. It's a slightly complicated open source / commercial license agreement. I want to see how we fit into that. That will factor into our decision. So it's important that we get this figured out now, and I'm grateful that they were quick to respond to my inquiry on their website, because 13.6 would be a great milestone to circulate our final proposal for feedback and potentially start at least making a plan, if not starting to execute on the plan for the first steps towards implementing. And so Enrique's right on track there. On Thursday morning, my time, we'll have that call. I have Enrique and John joining. I didn't want to overwhelm the team with too many GitLab people, but I'll make sure to report out and ask if I can record it in case anybody else is interested. And yeah, so that's the bulk of 13.6 as far as the static site editor is concerned. And the rest of it will be split up between some back-end tasks, offline docs. This is all in the agenda earlier from the dev call or the engineering call this morning. But the next topic is settings and nav. So I've been spending a lot of time working through all the issues, existing research, watching some recordings, although there's a lot more for me to process. I've been trying to meet with people that have been involved and identifying some low-hanging fruit that we might be able to just start working on in 13.6. I think getting some momentum, getting people familiar with that area of the code base, that would be fantastic. I proposed a few to Jean this morning. We reviewed those one-on-one. I think the ones I picked were a little more back-end heavy than anticipated. So I see, Catherine, you have a comment here with a list, which is fantastic. So I'll review that. That could help a lot.
Yeah, and to give some context there, so basically the Epic, are you working from the Epic, the GitLab like navigation, prioritization, and scope Epic? So yeah. A lot of what's in there, depending on how far down you're going, because I know originally Eric Brinkman was saying that I guess static site editor would pick up priorities 1 to 3. However, as I'm kind of combing through the issues, what I'm seeing is that the left side navigation is actually not the place to start, in my opinion, because a lot of that needs to be researched in terms of establishing the baseline for changes. The one area that I would say is like, and if it's not needing research, it's needing design. So the one area that I would say is the exception to that with the left side nav would be the issues related to the settings, like enabling and disabling features in the left side nav. Those are what I would say are the exception, because I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about, but let me actually, okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Actually, those were ones that I had called out as potentially good options. Yeah. They are, I think, more back-end heavy. So I think in my mind and in our initial discussions, we had been allocating a lot more front-end time for the settings and nav, which after we get design, after we get through research, it probably will be. But these first tasks are probably more back-end heavy. It just means we need to shift things around. It's not doesn't mean we can't do it though.
Yeah, so I would definitely say that on the side of navigation, unless you go down into the, I guess the priority number 4 on that Epic with the UI cleanup. So basically I wouldn't really think of the priorities as a linear way to work on this, because they actually have more, what's the word? It's not nuance, but I'm going to use nuance, more nuance to them. And a lot of them actually need to be reorganized according to what needs to be researched and then designed and then developed. But like Michael mentioned below, settings is another area that might have like a lot more ready to work on than navigation, in my opinion. Like just in general, all the different issues and bugs that were surfaced around settings. There are a lot of them in that epic, and that is not currently underneath the prioritization and scope epic for the settings part of things. So it's a little bit disconnected. Actually, it's priority number 4, but basically Hayana was collecting these all in this really huge settings epic. And I'm not sure if that all has been reflected in that prioritization and scope epic yet. So it's a little bit all over the place, but that's just some context I wanted to put out there.
No, that's very helpful. I'm definitely on board with the left side nav. I think it's probably an open discussion on whether or not we should dig into those smaller ones at all, since it's not the agreed upon scope. But since the agreed upon scope is still, pending research and design, is it better to pick those up to get familiar with the code base, maybe just get 4 or 5 of them done, or should we focus on static site editor? That'll be a conversation I can have with other folks this week. And then the ones I had picked out at a high level, there was a bug that felt like a good place to work on, but actually Jean wasn't able to reproduce it, so it's possibly fixed already, which is the best kind of bug, but it doesn't help us for planning 13.6. Then there was there was one related to that's another bug. I think it's on priority 3 in the navigation, which is just like something's not working right. Like frequently, that's what it was. To stop using local storage for frequently used groups and make it persistent across your user account. Seemed like a clear win. It actually doesn't change the UI as much as it does just like consistent experience. So, but it didn't seem dramatic enough that it would like skew baseline measurements. And then the hiding unused sections from the left nav was a candidate, and that was really it so far that didn't have design. There was another one that I wanted to talk about. The global search team or advanced search team is working on being able to search settings in 13.5. I don't know if that's going to land or not, but we might be able to iterate on that with them. It probably needs research and design though.
Right. Yeah, and I think this is one thing that's tricky, is understanding with settings and with nav as 2 separate efforts. Which one, like, are they being considered at the same time, or is there an order to how you'll work on them? But they both like have their long list of considerations and research needs and whatnot. But settings, I would say there are a lot more bugs and things that can be immediately fixed. We do want to improve the information architecture, but there are also just other things wrong with settings as it is today. Yeah. Any thoughts, Michael, on your part?
Nothing to add to that.
Cool. So we can, it'll be an ongoing discussion this week. I'm hoping to come out. Well, we have kickoff on Friday for 13.5, so, or 13.6, whatever milestone we're on. And So we've got, have something queued up for that. And there's plenty of work to be done on the stock site editor and the handbook and the doc site. So whatever is ready for the settings and nav will surface this week, and then just make room for it. So yeah, the UX research section of the agenda, Michael's got the first point.
Yep.
This link.
So Rihanna has done a lot of conversations with existing UX team members across the different groups, because every group at one point in their history has tried to attack settings because it was a blocker to either discovery or usage, or making it easy for people to use, but it's always been kind of de-scoped because it's like moving something really big there. I was just going to watch these videos and take some notes, but I decided that I'm actually going to just watch them through Dovetail, highlight all the key points, and then synthesize them that way. And then this way, there's insights that I'll have at the end, kind of the overall findings, and then it's in the shareable format for other people who want to get in on this but don't have time to watch like 20 like 10 30-minute calls and scan through everything. So planning to leverage Dovetail to transcribe and take notes, and then once this is all done, I'll share it back through a video or something like that in the future.
Yeah, that'd be real helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting that sense too, that everybody has tackled settings or now at least at some point in some way. And I think that's still the biggest unknown. I mean, it came up today, like somebody had a proposal for a change. Now that we're the DRI, it's going to be important to track down all those loose threads. People have plans, those ideas that they think they can implement that are blocking their work, or that would make their feature better or make the feature more visible, and just get their input and try and consolidate everything and make sure it's all consistent. But I can't meet with everybody in the company, so I'm going to need to figure out how to track all that work down. Yeah.
Yeah, that right there, I think part of that might need to be addressed, and I'm not sure where. I'm not sure if it's in the product handbook or in the design system, but that has been an ongoing problem that grows and grows. So I think we actually need some guidelines and some type of checkpoint for when something is added to these things. But that will come through basically research and design as well. So there's actually a lot to unpack with both of these areas, but it will be unpacked. But yeah. My point down here. Oh, go ahead.
Rihanna started MR to create an area in the Pajamas handbook to start documenting how we use settings and things like that as a baseline, so that I think this is where we'll start adding more stuff to back it up with research. It's like, this is what we found, and link that off to any relevant research. But yeah, having a home within Pajamas to like document this is where the kind of guidelines will end up in. So that's in progress.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I'm glad that's already in progress. When I was first introduced to the idea of taking on this effort and was reviewing the epics, at least for the settings, that was my first instinct too, which was, well, this needs to be approached like a design system problem. Like the solution needs to be based around a design system. There needs to be a predictable pattern for others to implement settings so that there's no, we don't have one group that entirely owns everything. Every time you need a setting, you need to go to that group. That's not how GitLab works. That's not an efficient way to work on something of this scale. But we do need guidelines and recommendations and design patterns and engineering patterns, code patterns that we can follow.
Yeah. Another thing to consider about settings, not to make the scope grow more and more, is there are multiple types of settings, and the same will go for navigation. So everything down to one, like the project level left sidebar, will need to be kind of considered for the group level. And with settings, there are basically four. There's project, group, admin, and personal. So they're just, I'm not sure what's all within scope, but those are also things to consider. But in my point that I have here, just to quickly put that there, we kind of touched on it earlier, but that's what I was doing with that sheet, is basically trying to comb through what we actually need to go take through kind of UX research, because we do have a new handbook page that's around the metrics that we want to track for improvements to navigation and settings. So that's what I've linked below here. And I've created UX research epics for the left sidebar and settings, and that's where I'll be adding kind of the relevant research issues. But yeah, that's all in progress, figuring out how to basically plan it all out. But what's hard about is not knowing the full scope. Yeah, but that's in progress.
Yeah, we can definitely dive deeper into that tomorrow during our meeting. We can record it for the rest of the team too, if they're interested. And yeah, I mean, defining that scope, coming to an understanding of what is the most important thing to work on right now, and what kind of iterative way we can deliver that. Because I don't think anybody wants to just go away for 9 months and come back with a giant MR that swaps out the nav, right? Like that's not our goal. And yeah.
Hopefully not, because that's happened a couple times.
No, it's not my goal. As much as that's my instinct sometimes, it's not the way to do it. There may be a day I should say, since it's being recorded for posterity, there may be a day that something like that does happen, but at least our initial goal right now is to be much more iterative, to make smaller, more meaningful changes to the existing top and left nav breadcrumbs and settings, and then measure the impact, make sure we're headed in the right direction. There may come a day when the whole UI needs to be refreshed, and we need to just, rip it off like a Band-Aid and make a big change. That's not going to be my proposal at first, at least not yet, based on what I know. All right, let me get back to the agenda. I think, Michael, you had one more thing about solution validation.
So just raising that we have like one more session tomorrow, and probably synthesize the 4 sessions there. Then I'll ask both of you to review it to see if we need more other areas to research. I think there will probably be, and I think that's always the thing of research, like it never ends, right? So but overall I think there's some solid findings already. We're like, okay, there's some stuff we can probably go ahead with, some stuff that actually most stuff I think seems okay right now. It's not as drastic as last time when people had no clue where to start. So I think that's an improvement. But yeah, so look forward to getting a ping on that towards the end of the week.
Yeah, excited. I had to move that for the holiday, but looking forward to having that session tomorrow. And yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot we can just move forward with. We'll see what the last session holds, but I'm very optimistic that we're heading in the right direction with this the publishing flow in general. And I think probably if I were to pick something that we should work on next, as far as like validation and getting feedback from design work, as we finalize our editor architecture, it might be a good chance for us to take a step back and do like a more complete vision that shows all the feedback and input that you have. I mean, you've been doing this a little bit iteratively with the new editor, and it's like, you know, takes the full width. But you know, when we have an editor that's more of a block editor, what does that look like? How does that bottom bar, if that's the design pattern we're going to move forward with, how does that bottom bar fit into you know, the page as a new editor? And then it might be good to throw in some forward-looking things in there about front matter editing and creating new pages from templates and things like that, just to kind of solidify our thoughts around like more of a 12-month vision, then take that and make sure that that cohesively makes sense. Then maybe we can spin off from there and do more iterative validation and research around individual parts of that vision. I don't know if that makes sense. I was just kind of spitballing there, but.
Do you want to set that as the theme for the next Think Big session? Or
that would, yeah, that would make
having our, or is our next Think Big around settings and nav?
I don't think we're going to do a Think Big on settings in nav, or at least I don't want to take that time for it. If we do it, I think I'll do it separate. So yeah, that would be a good that'd be a good discussion to have.
Cool, I agree with that. That sounds like a good idea.
Cool. Well, that's it for the agenda. Anything else before we sign off?
I guess a quick question, because we talked about ready for dev things. Michael, are you kind of planning to just get caught up to speed for 13.6, or are there things that you are looking to have cleared up for you in terms of what you work on?
Really good question, Catherine. Thanks for that. So this week and probably most of next week is still catching up on things. What would be helpful towards the later half of next week would probably be like things that need design or even earlier, so that I can start addressing some of those so that we can start solution validation on some of them. And then that kind of gets that ball rolling. And then let me know if there's anything you need help with on the research side, Catherine. I'm happy to help if you need help, but yeah.
Sounds good. Then, yeah, you could also look at that sheet that I linked, because some of them are probably big product discovery type of things, but some of them might be lower hanging fruit for design as well. So we could work on that together too.
Do you know if there's a board already that, like a product workflow board for anything labeled settings or nav?
Don't think so.
I'll work on
It
creating one
might
tomorrow
be,
then.
yeah. If anything, there might be one in like the growth side of things. I don't know if they have it documented anywhere, but other than that, no.
I'll chat. I spoke with Tim today, and so I'll reach back out to him. I should have asked him then, but yes, I will create one. I think that would be great if we just had a column that was like, these things are ready for design. These things are, pending research. These things are ready for dev. Then the conversation is a lot easier than wading through links from epic descriptions and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard with our epics because if you change the epic, you'll lose. You can't move them basically without making them lose the other connection. So I just made this sheet, but I just want to reorder everything, and so that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll try and work on that. We can talk about, maybe I'll try and have a draft before our meeting tomorrow, and then that'll be a forcing function to sift through all the issues as well.
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, thanks as always, and
You're welcome.
we'll chat soon. So long.
Yeah, hope you have a good night.
To all of our viewers.
Hope all the viewers have a good night too.
Click subscribe.
Yes. Yeah, like and subscribe.